Welcome to Daily Rising, the podcast dedicated to identity, standards, and execution. I'm Joe D'Amico, your mental performance mastery coach, here to help you stop starting over and start following through. Let's not waste any time and dive into today's show. Look, you're doing the work. You care. You're disciplined. You're putting in the effort, and still you're inconsistent. Now you're becoming frustrated. You're not performing at the level you know you're capable of. So what do? You push harder. You double down. You tell yourself it's time to lock in. You try to focus more. And that's exactly where things start to break down. Because what if the problem isn't that you're not trying hard enough? What if the problem is that trying harder is actually making you worse? This is one of the biggest shifts high performers have to make because effort matters, but only to a point. After that, it becomes the thing that holds you back. Most people have been conditioned to believe that more effort leads to better results. It sounds good. It makes sense, right? And for simple tasks, that can be true. If you want to build strength, you lift more. If you want to improve a skill, you practice more. But performance, real performance, is different. Performance is execution under pressure. It's decision-making when things are moving fast. It's consistency when environment isn't perfect. And once you cross a certain threshold, more effort doesn't improve your performance. It actually disrupts it. You've seen this before. That athlete who dominates in practice and then gets really tight in the game. The leader who knows exactly what to say, but in the moment overthinks and then hesitates. The person who has a clear plan but can't follow through consistently. That's not a lack of effort. That's a breakdown in state. See, here's what's actually happening. Your performance is driven by your state, and your state is controlled by your nervous system. Your body is constantly scanning your environment. This happens below your awareness, and it's asking one question. Am I safe or am I under threat? When your system feels safe, you have access to your best thinking. You're focused, you're clear, you're creative, you're decisive. But when your system senses pressure or threat, everything changes. You get tight. You begin rushing, overthinking, hesitating, or you avoid a situation completely. This is not about willpower. This is about your biology. Over 100 years ago, psychologists identified this relationship between pressure and performance. What they found was that as activation or stress increases, performance improves, but only up to a certain point. After that point, performance drops off quickly. It's not a gradual decline. It's actually a sharp drop, which means a little pressure can help you, but too much pressure will hurt you. And most high performers, they live on that edge. They keep pushing, thinking more effort will help, when in reality, they've already crossed the line where it starts to work against them. There's also a cognitive side to this. Your brain has a limited capacity for processing information. When stress increases, your working memory, the part of your brain that's responsible for holding and actually using information, it starts to shrink. So when you're overthinking, it's not that you're not capable, it's that your brain literally has less space to work with. That's why simple decisions feel harder. And that's why you forget things. That's why you can't focus. And then something even more interesting happens under pressure. Research on performance breakdowns show that when people feel stressed, they start overthinking things that are actually normally automatic. Skills that should run without effort suddenly require conscious control. And the moment you try to control something that should be automatic, you disrupt it. That's why athletes miss easy shots. That's why you stumble over words you've said 100 times. That's why you can't execute something you know how to do. It's not that you don't have the ability, it's that your body is in the wrong state. Think about a time when you were off. You couldn't focus. You were overthinking. You kept starting and stopping. What did you tell yourself? You say things like, focus, get it together, try harder, I can do this. But it didn't work. Now think about a time when you were locked in. You were present, confident, exceeding at a high level. You weren't trying harder. You were in the right state. That's the difference. Average performers rely on effort. High performers manage their state. They don't ask, what do I need to do? They ask, what state do I need to be in to do this well? Because the same person with the same skills in a different state will produce completely different results. If you stay in a push mode all the time, there's a cost. You lose flexibility. You get rigid in your thinking and your behavior. You lose awareness. You stop reading situations clearly. And physiologically, you're burning through resources. Stress is expensive. It increases cortisol, which over time impacts memory, focus, and emotional control. It affects a part of your brain where that's responsible for decision making. So when you keep pushing, thinking you're building performance, you're actually degrading it. So what do you do instead? The first shift is simple, but it's powerful. You go state before strategy. Most people jump straight to action. What do I need to do? Right? But if your state is off, your execution will be off. So before anything important, pause for a moment, but just a moment, and then ask yourself, what state am I in right now? Am I tight or relaxed? Am I rushed or present? Am I clear or scattered? Then ask, what state do I need? That pause creates awareness, and awareness gives you a choice. From there, you regulate. You don't force. This is where most people get it wrong. They try to think their way into a better state, but your body doesn't respond to logic first. It responds to physiology. So you use simple tools. Slow down your breathing. Longer exhales signal safety to your system. You move your body. Even a short walk can shift your state faster than sitting there trying to think your way out of it. Change your environment. New input changes your internal state. You don't force performance. You create the conditions for it. The next piece is recovery. This is where people miss the mark all the time. They treat recovery as though it's a reward, something they earn after they've done enough. But recovery is what allows you to perform again at a high level. Without it, your system stays elevated. And when your system stays elevated, your performance drops. Elite performers, those that are the best at what they do, they understand this. They build recovery into their day, not after, during it. They step away, they reset, they give their system a chance to come back to baseline because that's where consistency is built. Then there's another layer to this. A lot of people are unintentionally training themselves to operate in chaos. They feel productive when they're stressed. They feel driven when they're overwhelmed. They associate pressure with progress. But what you reinforce becomes your baseline. So if you constantly operate in urgency, calm, focused execution starts to feel really uncomfortable. You have to retrain that. You have to start reinforcing calm, clarity, control, because that's where high-level performance actually lives. And then there's your baseline. This doesn't get fixed in a moment. It gets trained daily. This is your sleep, your movement, your nutrition, your structure. All of that determines your default state. There's research showing that even moderate sleep deprivation can significantly reduce cognitive performance, which means if your foundation is off, you're not giving yourself a fair shot. You're trying to perform at a high level with a system that isn't prepared for it. So here's a simple way to think about all of this. Your state drives what you see. What you see drives the decisions you make. And those decisions drive your actions. If you change the state, you change everything that follows. If you've been stuck, inconsistent, frustrated, this is your shift. Stop asking how to push more. Stop asking how to show up better, because trying harder isn't the answer. Training your system is. So here's the move. Today, just today, before your next important task, I want you to pause. Check yourself, check your state. Regulate it if you need to, then execute. Do that consistently, and you won't just perform better. You'll become more consistent, more controlled, and more confident in everything you do. So let's start to build the system so that you can become the standard that is going to get you where it is you want to be. I'll see you next episode. Thank you for listening to today's show. If this episode hit, don't just think about it, go apply it. Be sure to subscribe and share this with anyone who came to mind while you were listening. If you're looking for structure, accountability, and a place to actually follow through, Ignite Nation is my women's-only coaching community where we do this work every week. You can find all the details in the show notes. Now go build the mindset and raise the standard. I'll see you next episode.